Park City, Utah, this is Democracy Now!
We, the people, still believe that enduring security and lasting peace do not require perpetual war. Our brave men and women in uniform, tempered by the flames of battle, are unmatched in skill and courage.
On the same day that President Obama gives his inaugural address, a U.S. drone strike kills 3 people in Yemen. Today, we look at the new documentary, Dirty Wars. The world is a battlefield.
Aden. Yemen's ancient port city was nothing like Kabul. In Afghanistan, life was defined by the war. Everything revolved around it. But in Yemen, there was no war, at least not officially.
The film Dirty Wars follows Jeremy Scahill to Afghanistan, Somalia, and Yemen as he chases down the hidden truth behind America's expanding covert wars. We'll speak with Jeremy and the film's director, Richard Rowley.
Night raids have risen to an astronomical level where there's 1,000 raids a month happening, up from 30 raids a month in 2008. I mean, after decades after Vietnam, 1 decade into this war, we've gone back to body counts as our only way of measuring any kind of progress in the war.
Broadcasting from the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Hundreds of thousands packed into the National Mall Monday for President Obama's second-term inauguration. In an address many saw as a blueprint for a more progressive second-term domestic agenda than his first, Obama vowed a continued fight to seek equality for the rights of women and of gay men and lesbians.
Our journey is not complete until our wives, our mothers, and daughters can earn a living equal to their efforts. Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law. For if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well.
In making those comments, Obama became the first U.S. president ever to use the word gay in an inaugural address. In his remarks, he also gave a nod to voting rights, immigration reform, and his recent push for gun control.
Our journey is not complete until no citizen is forced to wait for hours to exercise the right to vote. Our journey is not complete until we find a better way to welcome the striving, hopeful immigrants who still see America as a land of opportunity, until bright young students and engineers are enlisted in our workforce rather than expelled from our country. Our journey is not complete until all our children, from the streets of Detroit to the hills of Appalachia to the quiet lanes of Newtown, know that they are cared for and cherished, and always safe from harm.
President Obama also used his address to hint at a more forceful engagement on climate change than in his first term, calling the fight against global warming a defense of future generations.
We will respond to the threat of climate change, knowing that the failure to do so would betray our children and future generations. Some may still deny the overwhelming judgment of science, but none can avoid the devastating impact of raging fires and crippling drought and more powerful storms.
The New York Times reports the Obama administration will tackle climate change this term by avoiding broad, far-reaching efforts through Congress and instead focusing on administrative actions. These include reducing power plant emissions, increasing the efficiency of home appliances, and reducing the federal government's carbon footprint. Although the White House is planning a campaign to build public support, environmentalists have been warned not to expect, quote, full-scale engagement while Congress is preoccupied with other issues, including gun control, immigration, and the federal budget. We'll have more from President Obama's second inauguration after headlines. Algeria has confirmed the death toll from its recent hostage crisis at a southern gas field, saying 37 foreigners and 11 workers lost their lives. The dead included 3 Americans. The attackers came from Algeria and neighboring Mali, as well as several foreign countries, including Egypt and Canada. Algerian troops raided the complex over the weekend after the attackers were raided it last week, calling for an end to the French bombing of Mali. Meanwhile, in Mali, France continues to make advances in its ground invasion in the north after a week of airstrikes. French troops appear to have now taken control of the key towns of Diaboli and Douentza after rebel militants fled their positions. In Syria, at least 30 people have been killed in a suicide car bombing in the town of Salamiyah. The attack reportedly targeted a building used by pro-government fighters. Meanwhile, in northern Syria, activists are reporting more than 50 people have died in a week of fighting between rebels and members of the long-oppressed Kurdish minority seeking self-governance. The violence comes as the United Nations has launched a new appeal for its operations in Syria, saying humanitarian needs are vastly underfunded.
Our donor community, our international donor community, are only giving 50% of what is needed here is, in our mind, very, very upsetting and, of course, results then in much higher humanitarian suffering than needs to be. It means that the people who need the food, not all of them are getting the food, and so on.
Hundreds of people marched in New York City Monday in a show of support for stricter gun control in the wake of the mass killing in Newtown, Connecticut. The group 1 Million Moms for Gun Control called on Congress to back President Obama's plan for tighter restrictions on gun and ammunition purchases. The group marched across the Brooklyn Bridge to City Hall, braving frigid temperatures.
Children shouldn't have to worry about guns, and we should have a free nation that doesn't need to depend on guns and firearms to protect ourselves, that we should just know that we're safe.
Really listen to the voices of moms and not to the lobby of the gun industry, and to try to protect our lives and to value the lives of our kids above really what is an industry voice and not the voice of people.
We were devastated. I mean, it was devastating. And I think I've never marched before, and I'm going to do whatever I can to be certain that things change.
As a mom and as a New Yorker and as an American, that we're fed up with guns and with children getting killed and people being unsafe, and we want change and better laws and no more
Last
of these
week,
atrocities.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed into law a package of gun control measures hailed as some of the tightest in the country. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, New York, a group of demonstrators marched to the police precinct in the neighborhood of Crown Heights to demand justice in the case of Jabbar Campbell, an African-American man who's accused officers from the New York Police Department of a hate crime. Campbell says he was hosting a party for gay and lesbian friends at his home earlier this month when he was confronted by police. Surveillance footage from Campbell's apartment shows officers tampering with and turning around the camera monitoring his doorstep. Moments later, Campbell says he was brutally beaten and called anti-LGBT slurs. On Monday, Campbell addressed supporters outside the precinct.
We need to speak up and let these officers know that they can't go around invading people's homes, tampering with their property, and beating up innocent people. Treating them like animals. I was an innocent man, and I was brutalized by these officers from the 7-7 precinct. That's right. And I'm here to speak up and fight back.
And newly disclosed internal documents have confirmed the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Los Angeles deliberately hid evidence of child molestation for more than a decade. The now retired Archbishop Cardinal Roger M. Mahoney and other high-ranking clergy officials made extensive efforts to transfer abusive priests out of state to avoid prosecution and to stop them from confessing to therapists who would have been forced to inform police. The church reached a $660 million settlement with 500 victims in 2007, the largest of any Roman Catholic diocese. In reaching the deal, it spared top church officials from having to testify in court. A Los Angeles judge is set to rule next month on whether 2 church officials will face new depositions in a civil lawsuit over the abuse. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.